welcome back to the Rogue Wave podcast, not the Rogue Rage podcast, the Rogue Wave podcast, the frequency for all things pop culture. Check out Button Smash. Now, Button Smash, I'm going to make an announcement tonight. I don't know if I can, but I'm going to. Is going to be doing a special May the 4th episode. So usually they air on Thursday nights, but that would be May 6th. They're going to air May 4th.
I wonder why. What significance can May the 4th have?
Yeah. I'm starting the buzz train now. That's
the biased buzz train.
Yes, the biased buzz train. Now,
the biased buzz train.
We'll talk more about this, but very special episode coming Tuesday, May the 4th, and I'll let people's minds speculate. They will be on the show the week before as well too. They're going to come on the week before May the 4th to go into depth as to what they're going to be doing. It's going to be very exciting.
Awesome.
Also, like I said, later on in the show, we have Courtney James from Admit One Productions. I can't say the word admit. Like it's Admit One. It's just like Admit One, and
because you got to put the emphasis on the AD.
I have to enunciate
admit.
the ad, like Admit One.
Yeah, it's not admit. It's
no,
admit.
I know. I can't. It's like one of those words that I will just forever. I just can't seem to can't seem to come out of my mouth correctly. He's a writer, an actor, a director. He's been making films for like 20 years. He's been doing or making, I guess, more than just films, TV shows, music videos, all kinds of stuff. And he is also a Time Trader super backer. So we're going to try to get as much information out of him as we can about Jupiter's Legacy. It's coming to Netflix. Pretty excited about that as well, too. But first, we're going to go back to WandaVision season finale, really dive into it. But we're going to do it with Hassan's Rogue Rage. All the rage in the pop culture world, brought to you by Hassan Godwin himself, Lord of the Radio. What is your WandaVision season finale Rogue Rage?
It's well, I guess we'll go with rage. But I think it's I honestly think that the entire situation of speculation fever, and this is giving me the opportunity to reiterate my personal bias against speculating. The circumstance involving WandaVision in the ending to where the showrunner himself literally had to come forward and speculate that everyone was going to be disappointed with this series finale. And it was a series finale because there's not going to be a season 2 that anybody knows about just yet, right?
Which it took, to his disdain, it actually did get the lowest rating Rotten Tomatoes, which
Matt Shakeman, right. And why is that? That's because everybody, instead of just taking the material for what it was,
right,
there's no problem with the problem with all of this is the lack of nuance in the activity in and of itself, right? There's no problem wondering, oh man, let me think about how great this ending can be, right? Or let me think about how great this movie is going to be. Let me just sit around while I'm busy doing the ridiculously mundane stuff I do in my real life. When I'm a train conductor. I'm a bus driver or something like that. While I'm on my break, because you shouldn't be really speculating about WandaVision while you're driving a bus in New York City. While I'm on my break,
maybe you could be. Why not?
No, maybe you could, but then you're going to get the results that let's not get into that, right? But let me think about how this. I used to do that when I was a kid. There, when there used to be Saturday morning cartoons, right?
Oh, that's such a good thing.
That you would see the worst thing that could happen in a Saturday morning cartoon. You're watching something and then they slap on the "to be continued" sign, right? Sure. And it means you're gonna have to wait 7 more damn days, right, in order to see. And especially it was especially 7 because Saturday hadn't even freaking started yet. You were 7 in the morning on Saturday, and you realize, oh, you kidding? I'm gonna have to wait all day Saturday and then Sunday, Monday, all the way into next Saturday to see how this thing concludes. Yeah, and then throughout the week, you are busy working on how is this going to conclude itself. How is it going to work? Same thing that happened with us with Endgame, right? We knew everybody was coming back because they're not going to end their multi-billion-dollar franchise, right?
But a little bit downer, yeah,
exactly. I mean, look, it would be the boldest move in cinematic history, but But we knew just from a business standpoint, you're not going to do that, right?
No one's going to Andy Kaufman of
and no one's going to greenlight an Andy Kaufman $1 billion adventure. It's not going to happen. So we knew everybody was coming back. We just don't know how. And to make matters even more complex, we already knew how they had done it in the source material.
Yeah.
Right. The people in the know already knew how it all worked out in the source material. So the movie had extra double duty because it had to be good. And it also had to give you something that you hadn't seen. And it also had to make up for all the changes that it already made in the material in the first place. Right.
Yep.
There's nothing wrong with all through that year. I was like, how's it going to happen? I'm really excited to see how this happens. There's nothing wrong with it. There's nothing wrong with it. As long as you are objective enough, and here comes that thing again. And this is not a reiterative dig at yourself. Okay. As long as you're objective enough to say, that's not what I wanted, but I think I can process what I'm being given in a like to dislike ratio on its own, right? I mean, what you're given, you still may not like compared to what you think is good or bad, but it can't be considered as bad because it didn't live up to your speculation. There's still got to be an aspect of gambling in all this. You still have to be excited by the chance of being wrong, right? Yeah. And we're not excited by that anymore. We're not, we don't want to be wrong. We don't want to be disappointed. We want things to be exactly as we predict it will be, right? I don't know why. I don't know whether it's for the prestige of being correct or whether it's because this would be, the rule of cool. Like, this would be extensively awesome if this happened. If this doesn't happen, I don't want to deal with Marvel ever again.
Right.
Well, that's crazy, and that's detrimental to yourself. That's not detrimental to the material. I mean, ultimately, the material is going to take a hit, but WandaVision is not going to. You're not going to convince everybody who just watched for the last 8 weeks that everything they watched was crap. Well, because you didn't get the X-Men at the very end of your series.
Well, it's funny. Right? It's funny you mentioned that. Yeah, it's funny you mentioned that too, because a friend of the show, Dave Rosenberg, actually tagged me in a post on Facebook, and it was an amazing article that actually details exactly that. It's from Matt Goldberg over Collider, and the headline was "WandaVision failed to deliver things that were never promised to me." Who wants to watch a show about grief when I'm supposed to be getting sold on future Marvel things? He goes on to say, for months now, I've gone on Twitter and everyone's been speculating. The astrophysicist Monica Rambeau mentioned it has to be Reed Richards, even though there's no script and director John Watts is still working on Spider-Man No Way Home. I was promised by the internet John Krasinski would play Reed Richards, and of course that means Emily Blunt would be Sue Storm, which, by the way, would be an amazing casting job if they did.
Yeah, sure.
Would be an amazing casting job.
A little on the nose, a little too meta, cute. But I mean, it would work. It totally
would work, by the way. So I give thumbs up to that if it happens. Also, because Wanda is dealing with magic, that also means Doctor Strange has to show up, because we know Olsen is part of Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness. So Doctor Strange has to be there. Even though it's not till next year, we need some kind of teaser. If you don't tease the next Marvel thing, what are we even doing here? Imagine my rage and disappointment when WandaVision turned out to be a grief drama. Ugh, feelings. What does Wanda's emotional state possibly tell me about whether or not Mephisto is going to come along later? I don't watch Marvel stuff to feel feelings or think about my emotions. I watch them to A, acknowledge comic books, the more obscure the better, so as to reward my efforts, and 2, to tease future Marvel projects at the expense of the one I'm currently watching.
Right.
WandaVision denied us all these great moments that were not promised in any way.
Damn them. Damn them all.
Crafting a story with a strong character arc to explore a universal emotion that resonates deeply with the viewer. Who wants that?
No,
Instead,
nobody.
Nobody wants to introduce the X-Men. Instead of using the series to introduce the X-Men, I knew I was going to mess up somewhere here. They turned it into a gag about a guy named Ralph Boehner, which, while objectively hilarious, thank you very much, Collider, did not support my fan theory. So the show failed. WandaVision made me look foolish, and all entertainment must support my ego. I really hope Marvel learns from the errors they made with WandaVision, rather than selling us on Fantastic Four or Doctor Strange 2 or the arrival of mutants, things that we have already been sold on and will watch no matter what. WandaVision was all about feelings and characters, and that is unacceptable. I do not watch superhero movies and shows to think and feel. Now, if you excuse me, I need to start theorizing about when we can expect Chris Evans to make a cameo in Falcon and Winter Soldier.
There you go. I do not watch them in a can. I do not watch them, Sam. I am. That's the point, right? That's the point. It's
and again, before you continue, I got to give another shout out, David Rosenberg, for cluing me in on that. That was utterly hilarious and made me.
It's almost like we planned this, though. You know, it's almost like.
Well, no, that's the funny part. We did not plan that at all.
No,
I mean, that literally was just a
Remember,
I don't know who Matt Goldberg is, but you did a great job.
Remember Snoke. You know, that's all I'm saying. For the year leading up to the Last Jedi, it was just nonstop. I was an admin of a bunch of social groups or whatever, and we had to keep kicking people out of the group for Snoke theories. I think Snoke is Mace Windu. I think so, you know, because it became a game in and of itself. Fine, but it gets out of hand, and then what happens is this person turns out to be nobody. You know, it was a speculation that you had in your mind, but it never was anybody.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, now the creators are somehow beholden to live up to that expectation, even though that was not, that wasn't any bit of their intention. I think interactive storytelling is great. I think it's the future of this industry, right? In some way. There's going to be some form of interactive interconnectivity, not even going further than RPG gaming and whatever, where people are literally in the movies that they are watching, right?
Right.
There's going to be some other kind of breakthrough interconnectivity in this stuff, and I applaud it. I'm not saying I'm not a traditionalist by any stretch of the imagination, but I'm talking about getting in the way of your own ability to process the information, the stimuli that you're being given, right? To the point where you're so hell-bent on your own predictions or your own expectations that you no longer can objectively, and I don't use that as a hot button word, you can no longer objectively digest the material you're being given. And then it all starts to become bad, right?
Right.
And then not only that, but you're not sophisticated, not you, the royal you.
Of course,
you're not sophisticated. I'm just making sure.
How dare you, sir?
Yeah, you're not sophisticated enough to even understand that your hatred of this thing is because you're the one who put the expectation on it in the first place, right?
Yeah.
You come out of it like, well, this didn't live up to this. This was no good, not because it wasn't good, but because it didn't live up to some imaginary whim that you had, and that's not good. That's not very good for the mass hive mind that we have. And unfortunately, the way things are, we don't experience things alone anymore. We experience them in the collective, even if we claim we're not, even if we claim we're above it. We do. The first thing we do is, what's everybody saying about this? I like this. Yeah. Even if you are somewhat objective about what you've seen, the first thing you do is go to the trades. What's everybody else saying about this?
I'll confess. Midway through, I'm loving the finale, by the way, and I mentioned that in segment 1. Midway through the big battle scene, though, my mind wandered for a split second, and it wandered to, I wonder if other people are enjoying this or feel this is not what they were expecting. And it did. Like it naturally did. Like I was very curious in a very quick meta moment. And this is not a knock on the content itself that pulled me there. I think it's just we've been home. We live in this meta world. We live in this online world. I think I won't even be experiencing it as much, I think, when we are finally over the pandemic, which looks like, things are trending in the positive direction. We will be, in the coming months, maybe by next year. But I pulled out for a split second. I'm like, gee, I wonder, because this feels awesome to me. It feels like an action movie. And I wonder if people are going to be criticizing it because it's not.
Of course they are.
But then I wonder what the overall consensus was. I didn't at any point, though, which I was wrong in this. And see, I told you, I can always come forward and say when I was wrong. I didn't realize that this is the lowest rated, or the lowest reviewed episode of WandaVision just because it didn't give you what what you had speculated as to the rest of the Marvel universe.
It gave
that,
you
to
what
me,
it
is
what
the most
it
absurd.
Intended. Yeah,
Right.
It gave you what it intended to give you.
Oh,
and that wasn't good enough.
And it delivered.
This is Absolutely. The same. This was the same problem from the opposite direction of Age of Ultron, where everyone was like, "I don't want to see a movie that's just going to be the promise of another movie.
Right.
I want to see the content of the movie that I'm watching." Right. So now we've moved on.
Yeah.
We've been indoctrinated into the coming next week
culture. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's no good. I'm telling you, it's no good. I'm telling you, it's an non-subjective. It's an objective bad because it affects our ability to be able to process what we're given as opposed to what we want, right? And that's not good. Those two things are separate for a reason. There's nothing wrong with wanting things. There's nothing wrong with hoping for things. But when your hope and your want not being met precisely the way you have predicted, means that whatever you did get is bad. That's not good. You know?
No, I agree. And I think that is something that the collective, which we've discussed what the collective consensus on the internet really means, which is absolutely nothing.
Yeah,
and this goes back to message board culture. I mean, this goes back to the 90s when the internet and the collective internet discussion boards were relegated to small fandom sects that never infiltrated the mainstream to begin with.
Right. I totally agree with you.
So yeah, I do it tongue in cheek, but again, I think it's pandemic culture. I think because we're so locked down, it's lockdown culture that it's the only thing. It's the only thing right now that's got us actually. It's the only thing keeping keeping us distracted. Whereas we used to go to concerts and restaurants and movie theaters and all this other stuff.
Yeah, but everybody was like a prig anyway. People were always being bastards.
Oh, on the internet, yeah. No, I agree.
In general,
no. The manners on the internet have never changed.
But I'm talking about they just had more to feed upon.
Yeah.
I think the weekly thing. I think there's a good and a bad to it, and that's fine. I mean, it's just a thing we're going to have to deal with. I think being connected to WandaVision for the entirety of these 9 weeks has probably been a collective good as opposed to as opposed to a collective bad. I don't think that predicting the future. I don't think that wondering or putting together clubs and getting together and wondering what's going to happen in the future, I don't think that's a bad thing. I think that's what everybody wants. I think people want that interactivity, right? Yeah. And that they want things trending. They want things going like that. I think, as you do, it's a terrible metric for popularity because it's not true, but it's the numbers that they do have. So they can be expected to do nothing but go with those numbers. I understand that. But I think that we as a collective people need to start to get a little more sophisticated in our expectation ratios, because when you don't get what you want, that doesn't mean that you've gotten something bad.
No, I agree.
There's still an element of surprise to all this stuff. There's still shock and awe. There's still the adventure. I say again, if you knew that Luke Skywalker was coming at the end of Mandalorian, it would not have gone over like that. It would not have been the experience that it was. I agree. It wouldn't have.
No,
so
I agree 100%.
That's all I'm saying.
I agree 100%. Real quick, we got about a minute to go before we welcome our guest on next segment. The end credits. Now, this is the thing. I don't mind speculating if it's all in good fun, and I think that's what I do. I think that's what I tend to do. I know you don't like the speculating at all, though. One thing I thought was kind of interesting in those end credit sequences. Actually a couple things. One, as much as I love a good Boehner joke, I was definitely disappointed that on the surface level, we did not get the introduction of mutants, or at least it seems as if we didn't get the introduction of mutants. I think personally, they've opened the door now. I think regardless, they've planted a seed that they can go back to and say, look, we did it. Or, that his name really isn't Ralph Boehner, that it's some sort of joke. I mean, look, there's different things you can do to it, right? Where there's they've planted a seed. So I'm not ready to give up and say we didn't get the introduction of mutants, but seemingly, Yeah, we didn't get it. It was worth it for the punchline. It was almost like Iron Man 3, where the Mandalorian turned out to be not the Mandalorian, the Mandarin turned out to be an actor, which I actually loved that joke too. I thought it was a funny gag also. But the end credit where she's consuming the Darkhold and she hears her kids. Originally, Doctor Strange was supposed to come out like right after WandaVision. Now we have to wait a year. I'm curious. I mean, look, they've got it all planned out. So I guess it's not necessarily it wasn't how they originally intended, but I guess whatever, due to the unforeseen circumstances of the pandemic, I don't think it has disrupted their plan any. But
this is more than a minute, by the way.
I know. Hearing the kids' voices, though, I was wondering what they were going to do with the kids, because they kind of made it clear that she invented Vision. She invented the kids too. And that's what they did in the comics. But those kids.
There's speculation as to whether she invented them or not, or as to whether, because at the end she does say, "Thank you for choosing me as your mom," right? So she might know that they're actually real beings disguised as her children.
Yeah. So I thought that was kind of cool at the end. I thought, it definitely was I felt a great conclusion to WandaVision in the season finale, but that I like that little like dangling thread that they kind of tossed out there. I thought that was pretty cool. And obviously Monica Rambeau going up to meet Nick Fury.
Was there a question? Were you going to ask me a question?
No, I just, you don't like speculating. So actually I pivoted midway and I said, you know what? I'm not going to ask you a question because you don't like answering. Your answer would have been like, we'll wait and see. We'll see how it goes.
Yeah, I don't think I would have said it a lot more intelligently than that. But yeah, pretty much what I would have said. I don't know would have been what I said. You know?
Oh, that's true. Okay, yes, that is your go-to. Well, I don't know what's going to happen. I know you don't know what's going to happen.
We don't know. We have to become, like proficient at talking about things we know versus things we don't know.
Yeah.
Right? Because then if we are honest about what we know and what we don't know, what we say we know can be taken as something we know, as opposed to something we just simply think. Yeah. And that's not, that's not real information. What I think is going to happen isn't real information, other than the information as to what I think. Right? That's all it is.
That was
awesome. What I just explained was awesomeness. You cannot comprehend the awesomeness. I understand.
You know what's awesome? We have a tremendous guest coming up next. He is awesome. Courtney James, Admit One Productions, also Time Trader Superback.
Hey, you said it right this time.
Up next, he's going to discuss Jupiter's legacy without getting fired. That's our number one rule. But he's also going to talk about 20 years of making movies, making TV shows, being a stand-in, being an actor, music videos.
Way longer than a minute.
All kinds of great stuff when we come back. When the girlfriend of Markham, an elite assassin, is murdered, he has one thing on his mind: revenge. But the search for her killer raises more questions than it answers and sends Markham down a long, dark tunnel into his past. Markham must decide whether he's prepared to risk his life in order to discover the truth. Now appearing on the Rogue Matter website, Hollow Mark. Read it for free. Go to roguematter.com.